All right, I think we are live on Facebook and we are recording. And hey guys, it's Nicole and welcome to episode 25 of Stay Wild Child. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. And I've really been in gratitude this morning how this episode, adventure, these live streams they've always just kind of flowed so naturally. I've always had these beautiful guests who have just appeared and either reached out to me and asked me to be on asked if they could be on the show, or I've reached out to them, and it's just been such a beautiful flow. So thank you for being part of this journey with me and this unfolding of this beautiful adventure. So I'm excited to come to you live today. So this is Ann Miller, and Ann and I met through the Quantum Revolution Tour. We have a mutual friend, Jessica Ahlstrom, and we've both attended the Quantum Revolution Tour, and I know that that has just really been impactful and powerful to me. So Ann, quickly introduce yourself, and then I'm going to start asking you a few questions.
Okay, so I'm Ann Miller, and I am so grateful for you opening up your stage to me today. Nicole, I'm very, very grateful. I love how women are empowering women, coming together. And I wear many different hats. So I am an empath, I'm a starseed, I'm also a sensitive. So I feel things very, very deeply. And I am a psychic, I'm a medium. I'm also a healer, so I do Reiki energy therapy. I also teach the classes, so if somebody wants to start their journey. Quantum energy healing, light language healing, and it's been a beautiful, beautiful journey. Beautiful journey.
Oh, so you've got like a bag of magic that you just like pull from whatever you need then, huh?
Yes, yes.
Oh, I love it. That's good, that's good. Okay, so and you touched on this just a little bit. You know, our group is all about empowering women, and it is really helping women remember who they are before the world told them who they were supposed to be. And I know that, you know, when somebody maybe tunes in to this episode, they might say, okay, so, you know, I feel like I have some of those gifts and traits and those types of things. I have my own little bag of magic, but I don't know how to open it up. I don't, you know, so why don't you take us back just a little bit, because I always love like that pre-story, right? That pre-story on, you know, how did you start to step into your gifts? Where were you before? And you can go back as far as you choose, Ann.
Okay. So I still have this memory. It's still vivid to date. As a young child, I had these very strong feelings, like I could feel the emotions with others. I was literally sensitive, not sensitive in the word, but could literally feel things so deeply, even pick up on things that weren't even being said. And was, you know, could wake up feeling really happy, and then my midday, if not even, I would start to feel all these different emotions, because at that time I didn't know how to work with my gifts. And with all due respect to both of my parents, I love them deeply. I chose them, they chose me, and there were specific roles that we served, but my parents did not know how to work with a child that had my gifts and my abilities. So there were a lot of things that I learned from early on, how to be a good girl, and to be quiet, don't say these things because you're scaring your sisters. And it wasn't anything fear-based. It was literally me early on speaking my truth, talking about God, talking about heaven, talking about the angels and different visions that I was seeing. So for a while, there were certain parts of my gifts. I work with all of what I call all of my clairs. So yes. Clairaudience, clairvoyance, clairgustance, clairsentience, there's a list. So all the senses, I work with all of them. So receiving the information psychically from, the afterlife, from spirit, from the archangels, ascended masters, I communicate with beings from other dimensions. So it didn't completely open until later on. So going back to, as a little girl, there were things that I noticed over time. And I even remember when my grandfather had passed away, sensing his energy in my grandmother's home and not knowing how to work with that. And even to this day, I'm getting goosebumps because I know he was coming through, but there was so much fear that was in my body where I was picking up fear from the collective and from the, from family members, immediate family members and extended family members, and from society. And I had a very, very strict background as far as how I needed to act. And I took on the role of people pleaser, had a lot of codependencies. And I will tell you, there were some really dark times for me because I didn't know how to work with that. So now, fast forward into, I want to say it was 1990-91 time frame.
Okay.
I was going through some really dark times with my health. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was literally very, very deep in eating disorders. I mean, it literally took over my days and my nights. And what I was doing through food was to try to numb out the pain, because when I was 10 years old, I was sexually abused by my uncle. And, working with the gifts, not being supported, not having that strong support system, there are a lot of things that I felt like everything came at me really fast.
Sure.
So what was available to me, it was food. And I numbed out, and then I started a process. I want to say it was right when I was a freshman in high school, and the binging and purging process. And it had gotten so bad that in 90 or 91, I had to have emergency surgery, appendectomy, a whole list of things going on with my health, because my body was literally saying, we can't do this anymore.
Right.
Yeah, and it was hard. It was really hard. So I went on, even at that time, and I love what Jessica Alstrom talks about, vision quest. Even at that time, I started an early vision quest where I was on this quest to start bringing healing to my body, my mind, my spirit. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but honest to God, I literally prayed, and I started attracting in different people, places, things, and started my holistic journey, working with herbs, essential oils, understanding that going for a reading is having a reading done by a psychic and a medium. It's not a bad thing. Right. But at that time, I was still being told, oh, don't work with that. And there was still a lot of suppression, and there was not a whole lot of understanding, because I didn't even understand myself at that time. So I'm just going to fast forward to 2015. It was another big awakening for me, where I literally felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me. It was big. In April 2015, I lost my position with corporate America. I was there for over 26 years, learned a lot, very grateful for the experience, but I knew that my time had come, because I was in the mining industry, very cyclical, very volatile, and I embraced it. Didn't know what I was going to do next. At the same time, I was working to reverse an autoimmune disease that we know as Lyme disease, reversed it naturally.
Wow.
And I was in a relationship that I knew, even after 6 years, I was unhealthy to the person that I was with, and that person wasn't healthy for me. So later that year, I reconnected with a good friend of mine, told her about what was going on, and I had also sustained injuries later that year where I literally couldn't even lift my right arm above my head. Everything was frozen from the shoulder down because I was still trying to do everything normal while I was working to reverse Lyme disease naturally.
Sure.
Dear friend of mine, I love her to this day. She told me about Reiki. It was something that I had never tried before, even when I started my journey back in 91, the holistic journey, alternative therapies. That was one thing that I hadn't tried. Went for a session, my team and spirit came through the medium that was working on me at that time, Reiki Master, and she said, you know, I'm getting the message that you should really consider going on for training. Follow your gifts. You're going to use your gifts to help many others. And at that time, I was still trying to figure things out. And after that session, my throat was open. I was able to get the words out and lovingly say to my my fiance at that time, I have to leave. I have to follow my heart. And that was very, very hard. But I found the courage that I needed to do for myself so I could continue my journey and so that he could continue his journey. And in December of that year, I went on for Reiki level 1. That's when things started to open up again, all of my clairs. And it was little by little. And I share this with many others that if I would have received everything that I had asked for, my team said you would have been too overwhelmed.
Oh, right.
So
it would have been like, bam.
Yes. Yes.
We can't take that. Our humanness is like, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it came in steps, and then I started even more of a healing journey working with energy therapy, started practicing at family friends. Next year went on for level 2, level 3. And I noticed after my Reiki level 3 attunement, everything was completely open. I mean, open to the maximum open.
Right.
And I have to be honest, I was a little overwhelmed at that time, but I had some wonderful and amazing teachers and mentors in the physical and the flesh that helped me. And also knowing that 24/7, I've always had access to my team and spirit to guide me and to show me the way.
Yeah. That's so cool. So I would, gosh, I love how you, just laid it all out there because, you know, I remember I was doing a session with Jessica one time and she said, you've had these gifts since you were little. And I'm like, really? You know? And she said, you know, you should ask your mom, you know, if you know, if there was anything that happened when you were younger, and same as you, Ann, I have beautiful parents, but you know, we have more of a religious type background. And so it probably would have been, you know, pushed aside a little bit just because there's a lot of fear around it. It's just, and I think what people don't realize is, for me anyway, and I'm just like, I'm so connected with God, you know, and I'm so connected with Jesus, and I'm so connected with Mother Mary, and I'm connected with Buddha. I'm connected with so many ascended masters, but there's just this fear behind it. And so, yeah, you know, so when I was, you know, young, I can't quite tap into that piece yet, but at some point I'm sure it's gonna, you know, open up and allow me to remember who I was before the world told me who I was supposed to be. So
Yes.
yeah. Okay, so will you explain the clairs? I feel like, well, you know what, you explain them first.
Okay.
You explain the clairs.
So, clairvoyance, I receive visions. So literally see spirit that comes through. So I see angels, archangels, ascended masters, ancestors, elders, my spirit teachers and guides, your spirit teachers and guides. I've had family members come through, friends come through, even acquaintances come through. And in 2016, I was starting to see a lot of actors, actresses, singers, comedians, going all the way back to silent movie days to present,
Oh my
those that had
goodness.
passed on,
Wow.
and getting an understanding very quickly what questions to ask when they were coming through. Because in 2016, I wasn't quite sure. I was still starstruck. Thought, wow, okay, what do I ask Prince, or what do I ask Elvis, or whoever was coming through. So
Sure.
I literally see them like I see you. So
Sure.
that's my clairvoyance.
Clairvoyance.
Clairaudience, I hear the messages that come through, and they're always in the most loving way possible, because that's my mission with
Yes.
my gifts. Nothing is ever fear-based. I have a working agreement with my team as far as how I want to receive the information. So it's always with love, always
So
with love.
you have set the boundary, correct? You have created the parameters
Yes,
around how you see and what you hear.
correct. Because I will
Yeah.
share this message. I'm actually being guided to share this message to, there may be somebody out there that needs to hear this right now. But in 2016, after I had the level 3 attunement and everything was open up, that was my experience. Somebody may be going through their awakening right now, where all of a sudden everything is on.
Right.
So knowing that, the best piece of advice that was given to me by another mentor at the time, she said, you can ask your team to turn it down.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And that it's the most obvious thing, but at the time I didn't even think about that I had any say so whatsoever.
Right.
And
You think like they're in charge or something. And it's like,
correct.
right, you can set the boundaries. And I had a mentor who guided me exactly the same way. And and we get caught up in our humanness as well, and trying to figure things out. I remember I'll interrupt quickly and tell you this, because this might spur you on to another thing. But I remember during the shelter in place, I've had a lot more time to be still, and just a tremendous amount of self-care during this time. And so I had this download, is what a lot of light workers call it. I had this download, and my download was that I thought like a download, like when Jessica talked about it, or my friend Andrea, when she talked about it, I thought like it was like this mathematical equation or something, right? Like I thought it was like this chemistry or algebra problem, and then you had to go in and decipher it. Like that's what my humanness was telling me a download was. And it's like, no, it's just talking. it's just this feeling of information that is from spirit, is from source, is from God, and you're just the conduit to relay the message. And I'm like, holy shit. So it was such a beautiful epiphany for me. But our humanness gets in the way and cannot, frankly, either stop those messages from coming through, or can get overwhelmed by them and not think that we have control in the situation, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And we have this beautiful partnership we're co-creating with our team. And yeah, even looking at it from the standpoint of you can visualize a kitchen dial or a temperature gauge on an oven, turning it down, and then as you feel guided, you can turn it up. And I still remember when I said, okay, I'm ready to work with everything maximum capacity, and they honored that, still delivering everything in a loving way. So it's seeing the vision, seeing the spirit that's coming through, hearing the messages, sensing things, feeling things, knowing things. Sometimes now this one surprised me, tasting messages when they come through. What, the very first time, not so pleasant. Second time, a lot more pleasant. I think it was, I was tasting chocolate chip cookies for this spirit that was coming through for a client. Yeah, that was fun. It was pleasant.
Yeah.
And then scent. So, you know, like when my godmother would come through, and she's actually here right now with my godfather to my left, sitting on the couch with me for today's video. So they're my support system. They're on my team. But so she found a way to communicate with me, and originally it was through scent. Cigarette smoke. I kept smelling cigarette smoke. Nobody else in the room could smell cigarette smoke. All the windows were closed. And it was during one of my Reiki classes. And the first person that popped in my head, it was my grandma. She passed away from lung cancer, and she was a smoker.
Sure.
So that was the validation, that I knew that it was her. And now once everything completely opened, it's not just seeing a color or a shadow. It's like she's right here, just not in the physical body, but her energy is here. I see her.
That's amazing. I feel like, you know, for myself, I have started, you know, allowing things to open up a little bit more. And we do this fun little thing. It's called an intuitive happy hour. It's with a local group. We're not drinking, but we call it a happy hour because it's a happy hour, a happy couple hours actually. And we practice at opening our intuitive gifts. And last week, a beautiful girl that Lauren, who I plan on having on the show at some point when she's ready, but her grandfather was in the room, and I smelled a cigar, and I'm like, so this is what I'm getting. I'm smelling a cigar. And she goes, yeah, he smoked cigars. And so those are just, you know, I'm just kind of starting to open things up, and I'm asking for things to open up a little bit more, but I know that it's been the perfect rollout for me, right? Because everything's perfect. Everything's divine timing. Everything's for our greatest and highest good. It's if we practice at taking those steps in that direction, right, where our heart is calling us. So
yes, most definitely, most definitely. And I have so much gratitude for everyone that's ever held space for me, and that's been there to teach me and help me to remember who I am.
such a gift. Okay, so I took a few little notes here. Oh my gosh, I can't even read my own handwriting. Let me see. So let's talk just a little bit about what it's like working with the afterlife.
Okay. So if I'm working with, I'm going to start with working with clients. Sometimes clients are looking for closure, just to know how a loved one is doing. Are they at peace? Are they happy? Are they with the angels? Is my brother with our mother? So being the conduit, as you said, I am the vehicle through which the information flows, and I'm lovingly holding space for my client and sharing that information with them. And I will do what I call validation, just, you know, asking them questions. Okay, this is what I'm seeing, or this is how they're choosing to come through, because it'll come through in different ways. And then it's making sure that this is in fact the relative. Because I am open,
Right.
Sometimes it's a whole group full, and then really narrowing down and being even more specific as far as the primary person, the spirit, if you will, that my client is looking to connect with, and sharing the information. There's even been healing with making that connection, bridging the gap between between the afterlife and the living. And I've seen it, I've felt it, I feel it in my heart even as I talk about this. It's seeing how there's that inner peace and knowing that perhaps my client needed to hear some last words or say some last words, and it's helping them with their grieving process. Knowing there is no time frame on it. It's up to each individual person. And I'm always in gratitude to do what I do. I've also, this goes back to 2016 when I learned really fast from a good friend of mine. He's been doing this work for a while. He was teaching me the questions to ask spirit, like, do you need help? Do you need healing? Do you need, are you stuck at a false light? Do you need help being crossed over to the light? So I was learning a lot of different things. And I still remember Bob Denver. He played Gilligan on Gilligan's Island. Him coming through and not knowing what it was. And it was just learning how to help the souls cross over, helping souls that had passed on from drug overdose, different addictions, and being in a loving space. Like I literally felt this trust and having them communicate with me and asking for help, and knowing that I'm not only here to help the living, I'm also here to help the afterlife. And it's been such an amazing journey. Part of this work is also with my understanding of, coming in, I am a starseed, I'm a very old soul. So there's a lot of things that I was understanding about myself, and I'm so grateful to this day through my friend that introduced me to Reiki. She also introduced me to the Quantum Revolution Tour, invited me to go with her, and that's when I met Jessica Alstrom, and that was a life changer because up until that point, I didn't know that I was a starseed.
Right.
So there were different things that came to light, and even before I met Jessica, one of my mentors, he made the connection to help me to connect with other beings from other planets. And the first race of beings was connecting with this beautiful race called the Arcturians.
Okay.
And they did some DNA activations and downloads, and I wasn't afraid. Like, I was in total acceptance. I was in that space at that time to receive what it is that I needed to receive, and was doing different things and helping. And then it really started to open up even more, where it wasn't just, the souls that had passed, but it was beings from other dimensions coming through asking for help on different things. And it was trying to manage and even set the boundaries, working with both sides, with spirit, with souls, and working with my current practice of what I do today. And not being in a state of overwhelm, but learning how to manage what was my threshold in a day as far as how to work with my own energy, the importance of being crystal clear with my intentions of who I'm calling in. And a good friend of mine just said, you can do an all-encompassing, ask for the highest beings of love and light to come through. It's the benevolent beings, the ascended masters, and the like. And it's been amazing because a lot of it is through your intention and your willingness to participate in this journey.
Absolutely. I caught that word that you said when you were, it's all about the intention that you're setting for what you're wanting to share and how you're wanting to share it. So talk us through a little bit. So are these sessions that you do, are they primarily in person? Are they over like Zoom, something like this? Or how are you able to hold your sessions?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that question, because when I met you at the Quantum Revolution Tour in Kansas City last year, I was getting downloads of information coming through. I was under a wellness center at the time renting space, and I was already receiving guidance to start working from home and build my practice remote. So do it through Zoom, Messenger, video chat, Skype, over the phone if somebody doesn't have access to the others. And at that time, I wasn't quite there yet.
Sure.
But the beginning of this year, it came through again. The message was even louder. The feeling was even more pronounced. And I knew in my heart that this was a direction that I was being guided. And it has been so beautiful because I see the much bigger picture, that I'm able to be here and available in a worldwide presence, and to hold space for others, whether it's a one-on-one session, whether it's a group session, however that, that comes about. But when I say I truly love my job, I love my work, it's all heart.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit then about energy and how that transfers if you're not directly in the room with someone.
Yeah, so everything is, the best way I like to describe it is intention follows thought. So being aware of what you're sending out, it starts out as energy, and then it turns into form. So when you talk about manifesting, talk about law of attraction, however, you identify with it, with healing, it is literally holding the intention. I'm working with the client as far as what intention they're coming in with, what they're looking to receive from their session, whether it be a reading, a healing, quantum life coaching session, whatever that looks like, or if we're doing a class. Mm-hmm. And they're going to receive what they're meant to receive from that session. I'm holding space, but they're ultimately doing the work.
Right.
And they're receiving that energy. My team in spirit is working with their team in spirit to bring about that healing to what I call the Trinity. It's the body, the mind, the spirit. And I have to share this. Yesterday I did now this isn't my very first Reiki level 1 class that I've taught. All of my previous classes were taught in person. Mm-hmm. Yesterday I taught my first one remote.
Okay.
And it was a beautiful process. And I knew in my heart that I was going to be able to do what needed to be completed so that the student could receive the healing and receive the attunement so she can start working with the energy.
Yeah.
Things are changing.
They are. And it's so, I love that your openness to adapt. It's the one that I do at the Intuitive Happy Hour with Andrea. She's been guided exactly the same way. Get online, and so she's practicing at taking those steps forward, because sometimes there can be a little bit of resistance in that, but as long as you have the intention set, the energy is there, and it's transmutable through this beautiful World Wide Web that has been created.
Yes, most definitely. So with with sessions, I identify obviously with being a psychic and a medium. I find that with readings, when a client comes in, sometimes it's a combination where it's a psychic reading and it's also a medium reading. So messages that come through from the afterlife, or messages that come through from Jesus or Buddha or Mother Mary, excuse me, and then sharing messages regarding, you know, their awakening process, or questions that they have regarding time, money, health, relationships. I mean, who doesn't have questions about
Right.
it?
I think those never end.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a mix as far as, you know, when somebody schedules a session with me, and then looking at what's the correct fit for them. A big part of what I do with my gifts is really infusing that, you know, love of service into each modality that I work with, each service that I offer, and using those gifts, God-given gifts, to help, you know, to be there and hold space for others while they're walking their journey.
So share just a little bit, because you mentioned some ascended masters. So share just a little bit about the angelic realm and ascended masters and kind of their role, if you will, in our lives. Is that the right way to phrase it?
Yes, it
Okay.
totally makes sense.
Okay.
So with this, like there's the archangels, and then there's the angels. So the archangels, it's like there's a hierarchy. So they have different roles. So like I'll use Archangel Michael is one of my primary. He's the protector with the sword. He works with those of us that identify with being empaths, sensitives. He's with us here in our home. He's in the back seat, you know, my SUV when I'm driving, and he's here. I see him in your home. He's here in my home. There's Archangel Raphael. It's the angel of healing. Archangel Gabriel always helped me with communication when I was writing, jotting down, blogging messages to share with others. There's many that are out there. There's different angels that serve different roles. Like there's angels of romance, there's angels of abundance, you name it, that's, you know, what they work with. So even if somebody's not sure who to call on, just asking for help. Right. Because we come in with free will, we can choose to ask for the help or not. And they're always what I call just a quick prayer away, like a phone call away. Right. Just asking them for guidance. And with the Ascended Masters, again, there's so many. I mean, Buddha, it's the Enlightenment. Jesus, it's the Christ consciousness, Sacred Heart of Jesus. I work with Saint Germain. He helps me with transmuting energies, transmuting them, anything that may be dense, heavy, transmuting it back into love and light, something usable. Yeah, I mean, there's Kuan Yin. So she's all about compassion for others.
Nice. I was in a meditation not that long ago, maybe within the last month or so. It was a global meditation where we were holding space and sending love and light basically to the world. And this was probably about a month ago, I guess. And I had a very clear vision of Ganesh, and Ganesh is the multiple arms, right? Yeah. And I've never, I don't have, well, okay, so I'll preface this. So at this moment, I haven't, trying to say it the right way. Anyhow, I haven't been open enough to really see a lot of things. I mean, I see a handful of things, but this is the first time I've actually seen Ganesh in anything. And it was pretty interesting. There was probably about 12 of us who were online. We were doing this meditation, and at the end we shared, of course, you know, what we experienced, because when you share what you experience, when you share the magic, it starts to, because everybody's is different, right? And it starts to allow people to start to open up, like, oh, I'm not weird. This is happening to somebody else, right? I love the sharing of the woo-woo. That's why we have those intuitive happy hours, is so that everyone can share, because we're all having our own individual and unique experiences, and it gives somebody else like the freedom to be able to allow that to happen for them. But so Ganesh showed up in my meditation, and the lady of the hostess was hosting, and then her mother, Ganesh showed up for her too. And so, I mean, like, her and I must have been, I mean, we were just like going down exactly the same path during that meditation. And I was just like blown away that we had such similar experiences. And so it was pretty interesting. I don't even know what that's called, but.
Yeah, that's amazing. So when Ganesh comes through, and I love to call on Ganesh anytime you're looking to clear obstacles from your path, your life's path, your journey. That's one of the primary roles of Ganesh.
Oh.
And there's many others, and it's looking at, okay, who do I identify with? And then trusting what's coming through.
Yeah.
Always trusting, journaling, writing it down, because as much as we say, I'll remember this later, it's gonna, when you see it, when I see it, it's gonna mean totally different things, because it's our symbol, it's our language, it's what makes sense to us, what is truth to me, what is truth to you. Yeah. Learning how to work with that, remembering how to work with that. And even if you have that feeling like, wow, I feel like I've done this before, because you have.
Because you have. Exactly, right? Yeah, it's trusting ourselves. We get so out of the habit of not trusting ourselves. And so it's a good reminder, Anne. I love that. Okay, so we've got just a few more minutes before we close out. And so I thought it would be fun. You talked about different singers and actors and actresses that have come to you at different times. So I like to end on a little bit of a fun note. So do you have any like really cool messages or really cool things that have happened with somebody that, you know, all of us know?
Yes, I have major goosebumps, because what I'm hearing, my living room, actually my whole apartment is completely full right now. Yeah, wow. And I have a lot of emotion coming up with this, because a lot of singers, Prince, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Elvis. I had to write it down because there were different ones at different times. Andy Gibb most recently, Michael Jackson, John Denver. I've had Albert Einstein come through, Nikola Tesla come through, Mother Teresa come through, James Brown come through. And let me tell you, James Brown has some big energy, even in the other side.
Yes, yes.
And Anthony Bourdain, he's the cook. Yes. I asked him for help one time with making the perfect scrambled eggs, so he was helping me in the kitchen, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So I have to make a quick shout out. I have to say that I'm grateful to have loving support from my boyfriend Stefan, because he loves me exactly as I am. You know, he may not always get it, but he's there, and he's holding space for me, and he loves me unconditionally, and I'm so grateful for that, because I've shared this journey. And you know, I remember helping Elvis with with going over to the light and then he was singing to me as a thank you. And that was like the biggest gift to receive from, you know, such an amazing soul. There's been, I mean, I could talk all day, and this is me being humble. I kept a lot of this inside because for the longest time, that fear was still so much alive in me. My throat chakra was still not as open as it is now. Sure. Where, you know, I had the thoughts, is anybody even going to believe me? Are they going to think I'm crazy? You know, all these thoughts coming through. And I realized that my ego served a purpose for so many years, but I am embodying higher self. I am embodying this work and here to speak my truth, regardless of how I'm viewed by others, because I know in my heart, my work is love-based, and to share the messages, whether it's somebody that was a famous singer at one time, messages, you know, that come through from Prince, or if it's, you know, my grandmother that's coming through that wants a message to be shared, or if it's a message from Mother Teresa.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
To be that
it's
beacon
you're
of
a
light.
beautiful example of standing in your truth for exactly who you are. And that is a big message to a lot of people, because we get so scared, I know, of the judgment. And, you know, I'm definitely come from that old people pleasing, you know, role. And, you know, these expectations we put on ourselves, and this perfectionism that we try to seek, and realizing that we can be who we are. And it's just, and usually when we are who we are, it all breaks down to this beautiful love and energy that we have to share. So as we close out, do you want to tap in for a minute and see if you have a message to send, if anybody is coming through loud and clear?
Yes, Kuan Yin. Be in your hearts. Hold compassion for yourself, for others. We are all in this together. This is not a race. This is your journey. Continue to visualize being in this circle together, surrounded by love.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Kuan Yin.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you, Anne. It was a delightful conversation, and it was so good to like really connect with you, because we've seen each other, but we haven't like stopped and really connected. And I appreciate you sharing that about your honey, because I saw y'all's love. I mean, I can feel your love. So it's a beautiful thing, and what a special connection and relationship that is. It made me when you were talking about him. My husband he calls me sometimes, all your witchy friends are coming over, or all your woo-woo girls, or whatever. You know, he kind of picks at me and makes fun of me just a little bit, but he kind of likes it. He likes it all too, you know? So he's like, we just had a full moon ritual. It was so funny. We had a full moon ritual over here, and there's probably about 25 women. And he goes, that was some good energy. And I'm like, yep. He goes, they can come back anytime. I'm like, yeah. He felt it. He didn't participate, but I saw him peeking out the window a few times watching us. So it's fun.
Can I share something with you real quick?
Of course.
This for your husband. He has a strong connection with John Lennon.
Mm.
It's a musical connection.
Oh, yeah. He is a musician, and my husband is highly intuitive, uber empath, and we are practicing. We are practicing it grounding, and we were practicing at breathing, and we were practicing at quieting our minds. And but he is a musician, and when he plays, when he's in that creative zone, it's a beautiful thing. Which, yeah, but we're practicing.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I can't wait to tell him that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
thanks, Ann. Okay, so as you know, I'll get this up on YouTube, and I'll get you the link over, and just, I'm sure, oh, and I'll have you in the live video on the Facebook group. I'll have you put all your good information in there so people can contact you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I am
Thanks, Ann.
grateful.
It was a beautiful, beautiful episode. Oh, what I put on Facebook today, because I'm trying to call it something other than episode. I just think that's boring. And so somebody said adventure. I like that. So stay
I like
wild,
that.
child. Yeah, I like that. I think I just have to get used to changing my language around it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Right. Absolutely. And thanks for sharing your beautiful energy. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.